So you've done the first two steps. You found out if there's any restrictions, hopefully not. Again, you found out what designations there are, hopefully not. Then you can find what is available to you through permitted development rights, and you can make a judgment as to whether any of those are appropriate for your site. If they are, then great, and we're going to walk through the best opportunities that are available to you right now using permitted development rights. Maybe you're thinking about investing in property, or maybe you've been investing in property for a long time, but you know at some point or another, either you've been through it already, or you know eventually you're going to have to come across it, the planning process. The planning process is a very big gatekeeper to your property dreams and your property portfolio, giving you the lifestyle that you want, because it is a very uncertain, slow process that a lot of people just avoid altogether. And it's probably why a lot of people invest in other things outside of property, because in the UK the planning process is in such a bad state that no one can rely on it. So if it's one of your first properties, you're thinking about going into the property investment market and you're taking out loans to develop a property, you think it has potential, but you have to go through the planning process, and it's this really uncertain process. Not only does it take a long time, which adds a lot of money to whatever finance you might have on a property, but also you don't know if you can actually get permission for something or not. So you don't know if you can get your return on investment. And I thought that is just unfair on people, and it's in a really bad state. So this video and all the videos I do, the aim of it is to help people navigate through the planning process so that when they eventually have to come through it, you approach it with confidence, knowing what you can and can't do, so you don't get drawn in to the whole planning process that is this uncertain thing where you don't know the outcome of it. So what we're going to be talking about today is a term that's used a lot, and it's permitted development rights. Permitted development rights are immune from all the big problems with the planning process. So the planning process is affected by politics, either internal politics within a department, either councillors getting involved in a planning application, or it's people that object to your application. You don't know that when you submit an application, when the consultation processes start, you don't know who's going to object. Someone might object that has a very influential way on the planning process. Maybe they have a relationship with the councillors, or maybe they are a particular group of people that have particular weight within the planning process. You just don't know, and that's a really uncertain aspect of it. Even if you actually meet planning policies, sometimes you just can't get through people that object, and they can shut down your application, and it's not fair. So what we're talking about today is something that is immune from that, and that is permitted development rights. Permitted development rights are a number of rights that you have to a property or a site that you can exercise to develop your property. So as I've said, the planning process is in a really bad state. I was a planning officer for a long time. I know how bad of a state it's in. I've also been on the other side trying to get permission for clients, so I know the pushes and pulls of both sides. Permitted development rights are a way to make it easy for people to build, and also easier for officers to make decisions, which is an important bit of context. So if you want to benefit from permitted development rights, there are really three things you need to do. One is, the first thing you need to do is check Article 4 directions. Just quickly, Article 4 directions is a term used that's not fully understood. What Article 4 directions do is they restrict certain types of permitted development rights. They don't restrict all. So often you'll see a term, or people comment on forums or whatever, and they'll say, I can't use permitted development rights on this site because I have an Article 4 direction affecting me, or I'm in Article 4 area. But the point is, it only restricts certain types. So the first step that you need to do is find out if there is an Article 4 direction affecting your site, and also what permitted development right is it affecting, because councils introduce Article 4 directions in areas where a permitted development right is particularly problematic. So for instance, conservation areas, they're very sensitive site, but sometimes Article 4 directions might be in place that restrict them further. The next thing you need to do, linked to the point before, is checking the designations. Designations are things like conservation areas or area of outstanding natural beauty or something like that. The reason that's important is because if you are in a conservation or anything else, it does restrict what you can do with permitted development rights. You can still do things in all of those areas, but you need to know what you're up against, because then you can take from that point forward, you can kind of get an understanding of what your limitations are and what you can and can't do. So you've done the first two steps. You found out if there's any restrictions, hopefully not. Again, you found out what designations there are, hopefully not. Then you can find what is available to you through permitted development rights, and you can make a judgment as to whether any of those are appropriate for your site. If they are, then great, and we're going to walk through the best opportunities that are available to you right now using permitted development rights. The first one is Class MA. Class MA is a conversion of commercial to residential. Historically, this was office to residential, but now it includes offices and retail and other uses as well, and this opens up a huge amount of property. The other one is Class G. That's very similar. Class G is really kind of a good idea, I think, in my mind, for town centres. Again, it's commercial to resi change of use, but you have to retain the ground floor for commercial purposes, and upstairs you can only turn the upstairs into 2 units. So think of a town centre that normally uses the upstairs for storage purposes or ancillary retail that is really underutilised. And now I'm going to touch on things that you can do to houses themselves. So rear extensions, again, like I said, checking your designations first, because this one is directly impacted by that. You can go either 3, 4, 6 or 8 metres of a rear extension, depending on whether you are a terrace, detached or semi-detached property, and also whether or not you're in a conservation area. So with that one in particular, that's what you need to check. You can also do side extensions, provided they're not more than 50% of the width of the original house. You can do roof extensions as well, and you can also do, which is a big one, is outbuildings. Outbuildings are a structure you can put in your back garden that you can use for the purposes of the people living in that house. So you can turn it into a gym or a home office, but the important thing is it needs to be for the people living in that house. You can't use an outbuilding to then turn it into a flat. That would be a change of use. That would be the creation of a new unit. You need to apply for planning permission for that. So just know that. And a relatively new addition to the permitted development rights, which is the real game changer in all of this, is Part 20. Part 20 allows you to add new flats now onto a range of different types of buildings, whether it's residential or commercial. You can add flats on the roof of those properties. So you can add up to 2 stories for the purposes of flats under Part 20. And if you, for instance, have a freestanding block of flats that you think there's properties either side that are really high and this could benefit from new flats and go 2 stories up and you think it could work, by all means use that class. It will really work. The other one very linked to this is Class AA. Class AA is very similar to Part 20, except it's just 2 stories at roof level, purely for the floor, for extension floor space of that house. So if you have a house, you think it has scope to go upwards, under Class AA, you can go up to 2 stories. And the last couple is that you can convert a house to a small HMO and a small HMO to a house. For this one in particular, this one does often get restricted by Article 4 directions, so really important step is to do that bit of research. Find out if there's an Article 4 direction affecting your site. Quite often it's house to HMOs, which is the one that it does restrict. And lastly, you can turn storage to residential. So if you find an empty storage space around the country somewhere, you have the possibility to turn it into residential. So those are the top things that you can do under permitted development rights. It's just a kind of flavour of what you can do. Those are the kind of highlights, but there's many more. So learn the permitted development order. It's a really important document to learn, because it may just be something in there that entices you into your property development goals, and it could be the thing that gets you started. Again, it's immune from the issues that I've talked about with planning applications. There's certainty over the deadline. Usually it's 8 weeks. There's no political interference because it's a permitted development right. It's your right to exercise. You just need to find out if there's an Article 4 direction affecting it. You also need to find out what designation there is, what type of property you have, and then you can find out what type of permitted development rights are open to you, and they are vast and there are a lot of opportunities in there, so exercise them at your will. So that's what this video on my channel is about. It's about helping people through the planning process so that they can unlock the development potential of any site in the country without spending thousands of pounds on consultants and architectural fees and paying planning officers for pre-app fees that get them nowhere, and they find themselves years down the line frustrated with no money left and they've just given up on the whole thing. Hopefully, if I've caught you early enough, you can just take the simple steps to do the research up front, and hopefully you can be the one that just breezes through the planning process and then make the return on your investment on the other side, and everyone's happy. So somewhere on this page there'll be a link where you can find out more information on the next page, and I hope to see you there.